Lynchburg Community Action Group was chartered as a 501c3 organization in December of 1965. It was introduced in President Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty. The program was perceived as being very controversial at its inception because of the very citizens it proposed to serve were allowed to participate in the program's design and implementation. We actually saw an example of this in our very first case study, where people who were being served were actually allowed to have a say in what programs worked and what didn't work. Newspaper articles from the 1966 archives of the Lynchburg News and Advance have recorded the concerns expressed by the then city leaders regarding the intent of this program. There was a grave concern that the program would not equally serve both the black and white populations if it was presented by quote unquote Negro representatives. In addition to the possibility of race mixing, another concern expressed was that the poverty programs across the country had been mismanaged, corrupted, and were discriminating. Lynchburg's program managers dispelled the mismanagement fears expressed by those in opposition of their efforts. In 1966, the agency was awarded $130,000 for program implementation. 8 years after its inception, LNCAT had successfully placed over 1,200 low-income adults into jobs and provided training to an additional 2,800 people. LNCAT operated Central Virginia's first Meals on Wheels program that exists today as a standalone initiative, and in its infancy served almost 22,000 meals to low-income, shut-in elderly citizens during its first 2 years of operation. LNCAG provided manpower program and administered the city's first teen summer employment program that found employment for over 1,100 disadvantaged youth. Our current president and CEO, Reverend William J. Coleman, came to Lynchburg Community Action Group on October 2, 2017. Prior to his coming to LNCAG, he served 8 years as president and CEO of Tri-County Community Action Agency in South Boston, Virginia. He has over 20 years in organizational leadership experience and over 16 years in the nonprofit leadership world. Reverend Coleman brings a plethora of experience to our agency in areas of administration, finance, and human resources. He is a nationally certified trainer in ROMA, which stands for Results Oriented Management and Accountability. This is a management system utilized by community action programs across the country. As a community leader and local minister, Reverend Coleman has served as pastor of the Crossroads Baptist Church in Evington, Virginia, since 1979. A native of Southside, Virginia, Reverend Coleman graduated from Lynchburg College with a Bachelor's of Science degree with honors in accounting and religious studies. He has also completed graduate courses at Liberty University. Reverend Coleman holds an honorary doctorate degree in divinity from the former Virginia Seminary and College, now known as Virginia University of Lynchburg. From the beginning of its existence, LNCAG has had a board of directors that has been mandated to be a tripartite with representation coming from the public sector, which is appointed by City Council, low-income representatives, and citizens from the private sector. The governing board manages the president and CEO. We then have a leadership team, which involves the chief financial officer, director of development, which does fundraising and grant writing. We have a shelter director, which manages our homeless population. We have a Head Start program, the director of the Gateway, which is a substance abuse rehabilitation program, director of housing counseling, which helps low to moderate income individuals with various housing needs and understanding financial literacy. Finally, we have a director of housing and community development. That's me. I manage programs to help low to moderate income individuals with home maintenance, home purchase, and prevention of homelessness. For the remainder of the presentation, you will hear me reference our agency by the name that we are known in the community as LNCAG. LNCAG's mission is to effectively assist low to moderate income individuals and families in the Central Virginia region to move from economic and social dependency to self-sufficiency. In a nutshell, our goal is to help those out of poverty. Next, I will talk about LNCAG's sources of income. As you can see by the chart, the largest part of our income comes from federal and state support. We partner with Department of Human Services in order to maintain our operations within the community. The remainder of the pie chart is divided between interest income, rental income, contributions, program income, and in-kind and private donations. In 2016, we also received some funding from the sale of some of our assets. In this next section, I would like to do a reflection of the leadership interview I did with our new president and CEO. From service provider to community changers. I decided to use this quote from the interview that I had with Reverend Coleman, reflecting on what his thoughts, his goals, and desires are for our agency and where does he see us going. I use the analogy of this ship because for over 50 years, LNCAG was heading in one direction. We had several captains of the ship, and for over 30 years, we had the last captain. Reverend Coleman is tasked with turning the ship around and getting us on solid ground. He used this quote where he sees that we are doing good work, we're a good organization, but he wants to make us community changers. He wants us to be at the forefront of tackling Lynchburg's 24% poverty rate. And in order to do that, he is going to need to provide the tools and resources for his team, which is our staff, to make that happen. Throughout this presentation, I talked about the history, the creation of Lynchburg Community Action Group. Next, I would like to talk about where we currently are and where I see us in the future. We were asked to think about what the two top priorities for our leader is and the organization and justify them based on the readings, course materials, lecture models, and case studies that we have learned throughout the semester. As I reflect back over the semester, one of the articles that really stuck with me was Failure of Philanthropy by Robert Wright. This article was very eye-opening because it summed up my frustrations over the last 7 years. My former boss was a passionate man who cared about the community and wanted to make a difference. However, he lacked one critical element in his leadership style. He did not quite understand the impact of funding on the organization when resources were scarce. I can recall one conversation that I had with him when I was first hired. We were discussing the lack of affordable housing in the community and how we could be a key player. I had several ideas about changes and partnerships that we could do to further the cause and a full-blown cost analysis that could help both the community and the agency. His response to me was priceless. If there's a need, then we will create a program and worry about how to pay for it later. I was dumbfounded. It was at that moment that I began to do my own assessment of the agency and study the programs that we had in place. Currently, we offer 25 programs. Some of them are not performing well. However, my former boss would not close a program if one person needed to be helped. I see this as one of the top priorities for our new leader, to do a strategic plan and a complete organizational assessment in order to see what programs are still needed and what programs can be terminated. Secondly, I see a priority for our new leader as working with their staff and getting them to their full potential. He has started this by designing a leadership team. Nonprofits work best when we are transparent and we collaborate. For many years, the agency's programs worked in silos. There was very little opportunity to collaborate within the agency and outside of the agency. There was a sense of secrecy and protection of territory. The reputation of our agency has always been one of exclusiveness. Reverend Coleman sees the greatest asset of our organization is the experience of its leaders. He has designed a leadership team, which I am part of. He sees the strengths of each leader and currently is devising this plan to use the strength of each staff person where they can be beneficial. During our interview, he made the statement that we have an amazing set of people who can be exceptional leaders to transform the agency into something that is community changing. However, we have not been given the tools and the resources in order to work as a team. This will be his second priority within the agency within the next 6 months. I look forward to seeing where our future can be as an agency as we make an impact on the 24% poverty rate that is in our community. Question: what is one suggestion that you could offer to help the agency become more fiscally sound?